What is up, Meisterville? It's your boy Buckmeister, twice the nice that you were used to. Bam, and welcome to episode 1 of the Creative Podcast. So, this is going to be a series where I just interview creatives like myself, talk about their projects, talk about how they feel about situations in the world, get a feel for them, and introduce them to my beautiful Meisterville community. So, today we're going to be talking to Christian Reeves, all the way from jolly old England, UK. This dude has gotten so much stuff online. He's got videos. He's got his own podcast. He's got topic videos, discussions. He's an actor. He's a musician. And I'm really excited to introduce you all to him. And I also want to get some feedback. Please let me know how you feel about this hour and a half podcast. Let me know how you feel about the format, things you would like to improve. I really want to continue this forward, and I'm hoping that you guys want to continue it with me as well. So, yeah, let's get into this. Let's go. Okay, this is episode 1, so this didn't go as smoothly as I thought it would, but I still think it's a great conversation, and I'm excited for you to check it out. So just hit that like, that share, that subscribe if you're into this type of content. And, yeah, talk to you in another video. Peace. What's up, Meisterville? Welcome to the Creative Podcast. We're gonna start right now. I'm gonna debate leaving all of that in there because I might be lazy, but who knows? But we've got ourselves Mr. Christian Reeves, aka Superman. That's what I call him. Just Chris Reeves. Yeah. So how you doing? How you feeling, man? You feeling all right? How's your day been? How's your day been so far?
Yeah, it's been good. Uh, Sort of, I guess I was doing some stuff, like projects and stuff, and then I decided to actually go get some drinks for this and just chill. So for the last couple of hours, just been drinking and chilling, getting in a mellow mood. So
All
yeah,
right.
I'm
What
good.
what what you drinking? What you drinking? I'm curious.
Some wine. Monte Pulciano d'Abruzzo. I probably murdered that. Some Italian wine. It's okay.
So Italian that it makes you Italian when you say the name.
Oh no, I can't pronounce it to save my
uh,
life. Like, come on.
well, anyway, so while we're here, you kind of inspired me to do this whole podcasting thing
Oh.
because I've been seeing you doing the whole podcasting thing as well. Anybody that's following me, I would definitely suggest following this guy here, Christian Reeves. He's got a huge podcast list that covers multiple like subjects and all of that stuff. And if you're interested in those types of things, I definitely would suggest checking him out, especially if you're a fan of me because I feel like we kind of have the same vibe, same wavelength, that type of thing. So,
Cool.
with that being said, I wanted to ask what inspired the podcasting? Just for people who don't know. I mean, I do know, but I'd like to share this with my audience and all of that kind of good stuff.
Well, thanks for the plug. I appreciate it. um, I guess I've always wanted to do a podcast. Couple of years ago, I wanted to do. I wanted to do wrestling podcast. To be honest with you, um, that's professional wrestling. And this was about 5 years ago, maybe more. And I kind of toyed with the idea when I was at university. I like recorded a few things, but nothing really came of it. And then I kind of just put it on a back burner and didn't think about it. But when I returned to YouTube, I started seeing a lot of different YouTubers doing it. And I just kind of wondered, like, is that something I could do? I mean, we started one stuff and just getting used to just talking freely. And which, by the way, just on a side note, is not as easy as people think. It depends on your approach, but for me, I had to practice a lot to try and get in a frame of mind where, if I have like a particular idea for a video or a podcast, then I'll plan it out quite meticulously and make sure it's structured, so I have like a rough idea of what I want to say, and then everything else just kind of comes naturally. At least that's the approach for my main channel. My second channel is just kind of whatever. But as that pertains to the podcasting side of things, I kind of realized through doing those videos that I could probably do a podcast, but I didn't feel like I was able to do my own thing because I just didn't have the equipment. And, I didn't want to produce something that was bad quality. But when the opportunity came to do it with a couple of online friends that I'd met sort of in the last 6 to 7 months, I jumped at the opportunity. I thought, oh, that was a really it's a cool opportunity. I might as well go for it and see what happens. It was kind of short-lived, but it taught me a lot about, like how to structure things, how to plan. It taught me a bunch of things, really. But then it kind of ended, and I was like, oh, that sucks, because I wasn't really ready for that. I wanted it to at least go on for a while. And then I toyed around with the idea of doing my own thing. And again, the same thing of like, oh, I don't know, I don't have the good quality stuff. What if it's boring? All of this kind of doubts flooded my mind, as they always do with anything I do. But I decided to just kind of go for it and see what happens. And it seems to be going well. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I've managed to get some pretty interesting guests, yourself included. And I don't know. I'm just kind of just working on it all the time and seeing where it goes. And yeah, but I guess to answer the question really succinctly is that I'm just doing it because I enjoy getting to know people, talking in general, and just the podcast format in general.
Yeah, man, that was great. I'm a huge fan. I've been watching. I think I've watched almost every one of them actually. I really
Wow.
enjoyed your one with I think what was it? Sean? Is it Sean Hannity? I don't want to get his name wrong. I'm trying to
Say that,
remember.
Sean.
Uh, yeah, was it a Sean or? Well, anyway, that's besides the point. It's proving my fandom is fake. People are just gonna comment that my fandom is fake.
I had a guy called
I can't
Steelsy
remember
on.
his name.
Is it
Sorry.
Steelsy? Steelsy?
Oh, there we go. Steelsy. I think it was Steelsy, but I don't know where Sean came from. Well, yeah. So there. Yeah, I'm fake now. That's it. Cemented. You
Hey,
don't
no,
watch the
I
CPK
appreciate
New
it, man.
podcast.
I
Yeah, no,
appreciate it.
I've watched every episode. So
Thank you.
yeah, let's get into that though. Any podcasting tips for somebody who wants to start? I mean, this is mainly for me because I'm trying to make this a regular thing, but just for people who are listening out there, would you have any
Hmm.
tips that you'd like to give them before starting a podcast?
Definitely think about the format that you want to have. Like, I would say spend a lot of time planning it. Um, and structuring it. So like, okay, I think it's roughly going to be this amount of time. Um, I will talk about these things at least, and anything else is kind of ad libbed. I mean, I'm a bit unique in the sense that I don't plan everything out. I'm quite lucky that I'm able to kind of come up with stuff on the spot. But I always do have like some rough points that I approach. So like if I did a video on, say, I don't know, just a random topic, like how I don't know how my day was, then I would look at like, okay, well, let's talk about the activities, let's talk about, the best thing, the worst thing, and so there's like some sort of a structure, and it kind of almost follows like a narrative. And then I think that's, as long as you have that kind of like formula for every episode, then you're on the right track. Like, for example, I've actually got a situation where I haven't got any more guests coming up, right? So I'm like, okay, I need to keep the podcast going. So I got to, come up with ideas for standalone podcasts where it's just me talking. And in the past, I've had topics where I can just talk freely, and I'm pretty confident that it'll be okay. But I feel like since what I've learned with interviewing people, I've kind of put the same mentality into the individual episodes now. So it's like, have like a basic idea of all the points that you want to discuss, and then maybe like questions to ask yourself or to ponder, and also putting, asking people what they want to hear about, in your community, in your network, and kind of gauging people's understandings or interest, I should say. And also, I think it's worth just looking at like your favorite podcasts and seeing the way that they do it. Not to say that you're stealing their ideas, but like at least try and gain a flavor for like their strong that with your own personality. But I do think that that will come with time. Like a lot of the things that I do on my podcast, I don't even really think about. I just kind of they've happened over time. So like the way I interview people is just a process that I feel comfortable with. So I just keep replicating it. So yeah, I don't know how to sum that up. I guess just like have a basic plan and then just see where it goes from there.
Oh, okay. So, for those of you who are listening and possibly watching, there might be a little bit of audio lag and audio delay because we're on two separate sides of the world. He's in jolly old England, I believe. Yes, right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not trying to make assumptions here. And I'm in South Africa. Black people are very, very, very we very don't like assumptions, so I want to extend the same courtesy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
know that.
speaking of which, actually, you actually cover a lot of like topics that are very hot button on your podcast. I've seen some videos on the racism, some of it in the UK, some of it commenting on the US. Was that a thing that you kind of grew up with? Was that something your parents taught you, or is that something that you learned over time? Let's get into that. I'm very interested in your activism because it's genuine. Like unlike a lot of people that I've seen online, I've seen people be fake about it. I've seen people, like say a couple of things and they're literally saying it just to get like some views or some follows or to get like, they want something out of it. Whereas with you and the videos that I saw, especially the first one that I saw on Reddit where you were commenting on the BLM movement, I saw that it
Mm.
was very genuine in what you were trying to say. Like you didn't pretend to have all the answers. You didn't pretend to know everything about the situation, but the information that you did know, you communicated very clearly, and you were very honest in your feelings about how the whole situation was affecting you, which I really appreciated personally. So, would you mind getting into that?
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, when I was very young, I grew up in London in the United Kingdom, which is quite a multicultural place. So from a very young age, this is like preschool age, like we're talking like 2 or 3 years old. I was exposed to people from around the world. So I kind of, I kind of had that like childlike innocence from a young age and I've always been curious about other cultures. Like even to this day, I just find anything that's different from what I'm used to is fascinating, and I just want to know more. And that's why I love traveling and just meeting different people. So there's always been like a fascination for me. Um, but when I was at school, it was like a kind of childlike innocence and curiosity that I would just want to know more. I'd ask them questions about their languages and cultures and all of that stuff. But I didn't really think about you know segregation or any of these things. I only kind of understood that when I started seeing that from a young age. So groups kind of sticking with each other. Like I remember having like a group of Asian friends when I was really young. This was like I think I was 4 or 5, and like I really wanted to be included in their group, but like I couldn't really be because there was this kind of I wouldn't say like negativity on their part, but it was just kind of like I wasn't one of them kind of thing. But like that kind of mentality that they had, I think they'd kind of been raised with of like, you need to look after your own kind of deal. But I just didn't get that. I didn't understand that. But I just, I didn't think anything of it. I just moved on. And like throughout school, I would see little things here and there. Um, people being racist here and there, but nothing kind of extreme. It was usually just name calling and just not very pleasant stuff, but like nothing really that was like, wow, oh my God, right? Um, as I got older, I don't recall seeing anything particularly insane, but I have seen things over the years. It's usually always been like name calling, and stuff like that, and just people being generally like not very nice. And yeah, funnily enough, I said this in a podcast recently with Stilsy again. We did a for my 25th episode. We spoke about this as a passing point, and I kind of said that like with racism, as it actually is, not online, but like in real life, at least in the UK, I would say like not a lot of people are actually racist. Like you do have racist groups and racist people, but like in your day to day, I would say like most people just aren't like that. It doesn't even like cross your mind. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not something that exists, but it does exist if you get what I mean. So it's like, while it might not even be a thing that crosses your mind, it's there, and it's there in different capacities. And I mean, I've always been, I guess, a supporter of it, but like, that nothing has ever really happened that's kind of like forced me to take action or do something. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's like, okay, like if I have a friend and he's being attacked because of his race, I'm gonna obviously defend him. Do you know what I mean? Like that would be an example of like something I could do. But as it goes with like the day to day, I don't know that there's much I can do. Like I've often spoken about things like institutional racism, which is a thing that's big in the UK and in other countries, particularly in America. And these things, they can't change overnight. You have to work at them and keep pushing for them and stuff. And I think with everything that happened recently in America, I think it's largely opened a lot of people's eyes, and it's kind of woken a lot of people up and made people realize that, actually something really does need to be done about this. And it's something that needs to be like spoken about as well. And I think that for me, I remember reflecting on it myself. I did little things I could do. I made a donation. I was tweeting about it, like making videos and trying to kind of do something, and at the same time I was just reflecting on myself and just thinking like, well, is there anything about me that could even be like, because I've obviously never considered myself like a racist. Like I said at the beginning, like the thought doesn't even cross my mind. I don't think about it. But the experiences of people are different. Like I had a conversation, and I'll wrap this up real quick because I don't want to take too long with it.
Man. Hey, I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot. Again, sorry for the.
I was playing
delays,
basketball
guys,
with a friend recently because I recently moved. Oh, hey, no worries, no worries. So I was playing basketball with a friend recently, and he's a black man, and he grew up. He's about the same age as me, so I'm 27. He's 28, and every now and again, like we'll stop playing and we'll just like chat because he's a really interesting guy, and we just have these like nice long chats. And we got into the topic of race, and he was just telling me about his upbringing, and like we were talking about everything that happened in America, and just how things are different. And I said that like it amazed me in America how if you have like a black family, because I remember one of my favorite wrestlers, Xavier Woods, said this. He said that like the difference between, say, like him as a black man growing up in America and like a white man is that he has to sit his kids down and say, hey, this is how you deal with the police, and this is what you do, and this is what you say. And he obviously wouldn't have to do that if his family wasn't black. And that just blew my mind. And it's really obvious. Like it's something that like obviously you would expect people to have to say to their kids because of just the way it is in America, but it's not acceptable, right? And I just started thinking about like, well, how does this compare in the UK? And this guy was telling me about like his experiences, and he was saying like how these forms of discrimination are like everywhere, and they vary in different degrees. So like, for example, if you're like a female and a black woman growing up in England, you're kind of like a double disadvantage almost because you're female. So there's like sexism, and then you're a black woman. So then there's the race issue. And I was just sitting there like, wow, this is like crazy to even think about, but it's there. And yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is it's just something that we need to always be talking about and trying to do things with and expose and, change as much as we possibly can. And I always look at like what I can do. And I think like talking about it a lot is something that you can do, and spreading awareness about causes is something as well. But yeah, I guess that's kind of like
Definitely,
all I have to.
definitely. No, I mean, well, for me personally, with the whole situation, I think, well, first off, as a black dude, as everybody knows, in case you're surprised, yeah, growing up with instances, I've had situations and such, and I mean, for me, I'm a believer in the human experience, but if you don't get it, I don't have time to explain it to you. I would rather work on the institutionalized stuff with the people who are trying to get it, who are asking the questions. Because, I mean, like, when you're trying to deal with these things, first off, there's people who won't want to listen. They just won't want to listen. They don't want to listen, and they don't care. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I don't have to change your mind, because that's also in my understanding of it. It's kind of like a colonizer mentality to want to change somebody's mind because they don't think like you. But that's fine. I would rather spend time with Christian Reeves trying to change the systemic stuff than trying to convince racist X that he's stupid. If he wants to live stupid, I mean, of course I'm gonna expose him and say that you're racist. But if he doesn't want to change his mind, I don't care. I'm rather going to say, all right, how do we change the systemic economic situation such that even if he feels the way he feels, I don't have to deal with him. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. What are your thoughts on a solution like that of some kind?
I'm not really sure as far as like a solution goes, but I do think that like again discussing these things and trying to kind of I think calling out institutions and companies is a very good step. I think that's something that we need to be doing like around the clock. Um, and I don't know, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about recent things I've said to friends and stuff about racism because, okay, here's a couple of things, right? First of all, it's just not logical. Like when you really think about it, it's not a logical thing. Like you're not like born hating anyone. You're taught that, and it's like, and this is why like I wouldn't say that I have like sympathy for racists, but I do. And maybe this is something that I've learned over years as I've mellowed out. I like to try to understand why people have the views that they do. Like I've had people on my podcast before that have views that are different from my own, and I challenge them, but I don't like attack them because I'm trying to understand where that mentality comes from. And with racism, I mean, like, can you think of like an intelligent person that's racist? Like, really and truthfully, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's rare, and when they do
Well, I mean, they
explain, like,
they're racist with degrees, so I guess intelligence varies, but the concept of racism is retarded, in my opinion. Whoops, probably demonetized my whole podcast. Okay,
you can always
but
cut that out. But I guess, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, like whenever I hear like really right wing people try and explain their racism, like it always comes down to like one of two things. Either one, it's like a personal experience where they had like a bad experience with a couple of people who happen to be from a certain place, and then they've kind of generalized an entire like race or culture or whatever based on that, right? Which I understand. I don't agree with it, but like I get at least why they think that way, right? But it comes out of like fear and like anger, right? But then just basic racism where there's no like personal issue, it's just kind of just a general dislike, that is taught, and that's taught through like parents or family or like a community that you're in. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would imagine if you grow in a community of like racists, I don't know, it's very unlikely that you're not going to be racist, because you're kind of like indoctrinated, you know, you're taught to believe things in a certain way. And I feel like a lot of our beliefs and everything in life is down to like our exposure to things. And the same is true of like life lessons as well. Like, I know with me, you know, I used to be a very closed-minded person, and over time, and
Really?
like, through like certain things that happen in my life, meeting certain people, you know, you grow up, you change, and you move on, you move forward, and you become, I would say, like a better person as a result of it. But the trouble is, like, not everyone has that open-mindedness, or, you know, maybe they're not at the point where they're learning just yet. And I feel like a lot of people have to have those moments of clarity, like, and like life, you know, like life will always teach you those lessons one way or another. Either it will come in a simple lesson and you learn it and you move forward very quickly, or it will be something harsher. So like for a racist, you know, I mean, here's a really good example that I saw. This happened in the last couple of months. There was a thing on Twitter. It was on the London Underground, which is the tube network in London in the UK.
Okay.
And there was a guy. So basically, you've got a group of black guys sitting at one side of the train. I think they're like going to a BLM demonstration in London, and then on the other side, or I don't know, like a mixture of people filming, right? And then there's a guy in the middle of the carriage who's just shouting abuse. He's a white guy. He's being really racist. He said something like, "It's trendy or it's popular to be racist," which confused the fuck out of me. But yeah, that's what he kept
I didn't know
saying.
that was. I didn't know that was a thing you wanted to wear on your sleeve. Okay.
I think he meant like, it's popular to be controversial, to, you know, to challenge the
So.
status quo or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
But he's a
Okay.
straight up racist, and he was shouting abuse at everyone continuously, and it was just really uncomfortable. It lasted for like 3 minutes, and these people, like the black guys, said nothing. They just sat there quietly listening to this guy, and he was provoking them. He was shouting at them, shouting in a direction. You know, like when someone is verbally abusing you, and they're kind of like just almost like growling in your face. Do you remember? They were being like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was being
Yeah.
like that towards them, and they were just calm the whole time, putting up with it. And these people to the left were like sort of saying, "Hey man, what the fuck's your problem? Can I swear? Is that right?"
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's late now. I said the word retarded.
yeah, you know, they were like, "What the hell, man? What's your problem? You know, like, just shut up. No one wants to hear it," basically. And he just would not listen. He would not shut up. And yeah, it got to the point where basically these guys were getting up to leave, the black guys, and he was still shouting at them as they're like, you know, getting ready to leave the door. And like one of them just keeps looking at him, and he keeps pushing and pushing, provoking, right? And then this guy just punches him and knocks him out. And he just goes flying, and just he's knocked out, right? And I was sitting there looking at that and like thinking about the different ways that people will interpret that. So there'll be a contingent of people that'll be like, "Oh, you know, violence is never the answer, and you should never do that." But I remember retweeting it and saying, like, the thing is, this is like what people have to put up with like all the time. Where the reality is, if you retaliate, you're the one who's, you know, prosecuted or punished. It's like when you're at school and someone's like starting a fight with you, and then you fight back, and then you get in trouble, and everyone the world over is like, "That's unfair. That's not fair." And the same is true in this situation. And I was looking at that like, who knows? Maybe that punch knocks some sense into him. Probably not.
It'd
But
be
you
great.
never know. You never know. That to me is like an extreme example of like getting a lesson shown to you. Because what that guy was saying when he was punching that guy, right, was like, see how long that I've put up with this. I've had to put up with this my whole life. I sat there for like 3 or 4 minutes while you were abusing me, and I said nothing. And then you just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually everyone has their line. You keep pushing someone, they have to retaliate in some shape or form. And I
That's
just, yeah, I was like, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say I'm a big believer in the human experience, because I mean that could be true like across. I mean, of course, in that instance it was racism, but I mean that can come across in multiple things. Like in school, if you have that guy who's always picking on you every day he's doing something to you. Every day he's pushing you around. Every day he's kicking you on the floor, and no one's doing anything about it. Eventually, you're gonna snap. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean,
And there's two lessons to be learned there as well. Like the lesson you need to learn, because I believe that life throws you these lessons on purpose. And I think that like in that scenario, yeah, it's like it's a bully. You know, you need to challenge the bully. You need to face your fear. You know, stand up to the bully, and the bully needs to learn the lesson of you can't be a bully in life. So the ideal solution in that scenario is that you punch the bully and knock them out, or you know, punch them enough that they're scared and don't want to retaliate. Because a lot of like bullying is just that. It's trying to belittle others to give yourself power. You know, like I think that guy, when he was on the tube, he thought like he was some sort of a justice warrior, and I think he thought that like maybe the world is going soft, and you know, like I was trying to find some rationale in his mind of like what he wanted to achieve with that. And it's very difficult because, like I said in the beginning, like, you know, racism is just irrational. It's based on this perception of inferiority based on like how you look, which is something you can't control. You're just born the way you are. That's it. So, and like as we know, that has no bearing on anything from like intelligence to, you know, your talents in life. Any like makes no fucking difference. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. But definitely. I do want to say though, I did try to punch my bully, and it didn't work out for me. It didn't work out. He was much bigger than I was, and he was not afraid at all.
hey, well,
I eventually had to call in for help. I was like, guys. Well, and then yeah, and then what I did was is, I mean, I know, it might be unhonorable, but hey, he was picking on me. So what I did is, after school, me and my cousin and two of his buddies, we jumped him, and we were just like, yeah, this is what's gonna wait for you every day after school if you continue to pick on me. I don't care if it's not fair. You're like twice my size.
I've
That
always
time I'm like 12 years old.
yeah, I've always seen it by like, you know, the situation and what it presents itself. Because I'm not a violent person. I've only been in a few altercations, but to be honest, I've always been able to talk myself out of a situation. There was only one time when I wasn't able to do it, and I'll tell that story. Actually, I've never told it. So there was
Yeah,
this one.
let's go.
There was this. This is the only time that I wasn't able to talk myself out of a situation, and I kind of based my decisions at the time based on my options. So I was about 13 and I was walking home. It was late at night. I think it was like 1 a.m. And this guy came up to me who was 18. I knew who he was, not by name, but I'd seen him around. And basically, to give you a setting, it's like we're near a main road. All of his friends are across the road, so they can run over at any point. There's about between 15 to 20 of them. Right, so there's absolutely no chance of me being able to fight my way out of a situation, because it's that fight or flight thing. Do I run or do I fight him? What do I do? So I had very limited options. Plus, I'd been smoking. I was high, which actually worked out for me well in the end, and I'll explain later why.
Okay.
I'm not in my senses. You know, it's a scary time. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was scared. my first thing was to run backwards, and I remember him saying, "Don't try it," and I turned to face him because I knew he was right, even in that weird scenario. Like the guy, the guy trying to beat me up is speaking sense.
Let's just pause for a second. I just want to say that an 18-year-old trying to fight with a 13-year-old is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That's like me trying to pick on my niece.
I will say
Seriously.
I did look a bit older than my age, so there is that. I think at 13 I looked 15, 16, so there was that.
Oh, come on. But you're 18. You have to have things going on in your life. I just felt like dude was a loser. Anyway, continue.
Well, I mean, he it was the standard, give me your money, give me your phone. I didn't have anything on me. I was telling the truth. Like the phone I had was some cheap, crappy phone that isn't worth stealing. I had no money, just had my keys. That was it. I had nothing on me. It wasn't about that. He wanted to flex. He wanted to show off in front of his mates. They'd all been drinking. I think it was that sort of thing, like, oh, look, there's someone like, walking. I'm just gonna have a go. This will be funny. That I think it was that kind of attitude.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what to do because in my mind I was like, do I fight him? I'm probably gonna lose, but what are my options? And I decided like I'm gonna see what happens because I'm pretty sure if I do fight, they're all going to come over. Like, let's say I started winning the fight for argument's sake. They're all going to come jump me. It's going to get a lot worse. It would actually be better for me to lose the fight.
Yeah.
In terms of, because I'm thinking like, how do I survive this? Because there's a very real chance he might stab me, kill me, that kind of stuff, right? And that was a big thing that was happening in London at the time was stabbings.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, they always happened, but at that time it was big in the news and stuff, and there was all gangs and everything. So he starts punching me. It's weird because like I was upset, I was crying, but at the same time he was punching me like hard in the temples and stuff, and it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. I remember thinking like, this doesn't hurt like I thought it would. I don't understand. And it was a very confusing situation. In the end, he kind of left me because I think he just thought I was pathetic and left and walked away. And I was upset and I kept walking. And I remember getting home, I told my parents, they were like worried, all this, blah, blah, blah. But, after that, I was worried every time I would see him and stuff, but then it kind of just quickly went away. And then I remember just thinking like how lucky I was. And that I did make the right decision in that scenario. And I think the main thing that it kind of taught me is you have to look logically at a situation. So like, if you need to fight, you fight, right? If you can get away. Like, don't worry about that whole, you should be courageous, don't be a pussy. No, it's survival. You got to think survival.
Yeah,
like if your best chance of survival is to fight, then fight, go for it, right? But also remember, like, it's not Queensberry rules. You can go straight for the nuts. You can bite.
Yeah.
That's how your mentality has to be when you're in a scenario like that. You need to survive. What's your best chance of survival? So I think that's the main lesson I learned from that. But
I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee used to say like all of these rules, they don't mean anything in a street fight. Like in his movies, he'd have all the fancy kicks and stuff, but if he had to bite somebody on the arm or leg or whatever, because I remember there's this one scene in Fist of Fury where the guy has him in an armbar and he literally bites the dude's ankle to get out of the armbar.
Well, here's another thing as well. Like those movies populated that idea of like when you're in a fight situation and you're being jumped by a bunch of people, that they're all just gonna come in and take turns attacking you. No.
Yeah.
If there's a fight situation and you're outnumbered, everyone is going to rush you and kick you and punch you simultaneously. And if you can out battle that, fair play. But I doubt you will.
Yeah, no, I doubt you will. No, I mean, he even said
he could probably fight 3 to 5 guys. After that, I think even Bruce Lee would struggle. To be honest, I think again,
No,
it's the Bible.
he definitely talked about that in an interview where he was like, "These are just movies and whatever, like people have guns and stuff. It's not going to work out
Mm,
that way." But in his own movie, though, what I found interesting was is he had all those fancy moves, but he would like bite people, he would like jab them in the eye. He was
yeah.
very pro do whatever you can to survive. He was not like you don't have to fight by these rules or whatever. And I will say though, if you're gonna jump Bruce Lee, who's going first? That would be my first question because you might end up paralyzed. Like in your group of friends, you just have to ask, okay, who's willing to get a broken spine if we're gonna win this fight? Because he's gonna hit somebody.
I mean, hypothetically, everyone run him at the same time. That's the way you do
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
you know.
but I mean, yeah,
And
yes,
ground him, get him on his feet, ground.
yeah, I definitely don't believe in that
You
whole
know,
thing of you have
that,
to fight 50 people at a time. And as a person who does MMA, I've like done MMA. Getting punched in the face will humble you very quickly. So, I'm
yeah.
definitely not a violent dude in the sense that I want to fight. Like that it has to be a situation of like life or death for me to actually want to raise my fists and throw something. But
I think
yeah, I
very few people in the world actually want to fight as well. I think that's a misconception. I think a lot of people, certainly that I've met over the years, are all talk and they don't actually want to get. You got people that talk and threaten, but then don't want to get in a fight. Real fighters, actual fighters who do it for a living, don't go around picking fights
oh
for a
no,
living. Like they're. I
no.
mean, martial arts and MMA and all these things teach you, like, as part of the theoretical side of things, that you want to avoid fights if anything, and it's all about self
Yep.
defense and because like once you know those things, you essentially have tools that you can like kill a person with, and then you have like responsibility. It's like being a superhero in a way. It's like with great power comes great responsibility. You need to use that wisely, and like even in a scenario where you are defending yourself, you still have to think about, well, I should paralyze them or like ground them. I shouldn't try to kill them. You know what I mean? Like there's always that responsibility, for like actual proper fighters who do it like, for a living or whatever. But I think like it's very rare that people actually want to start fights. And I think the reason that most people stand and stare in a fight situation is because A, it's not something you see often. B,
Yeah.
it's like, well, eventually those two idiots are going to stop fighting. Do you know what I mean? Like a fight, when you really think about it, is a loss. It's two people who have failed to resolve a situation, so they resort to fighting. And I know that sometimes people just pick fights on people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like 9 times out of 10, it's because they're like drunk or they're an idiot or there's like some sort of silly
No,
issue.
I definitely agree with you on that sense. But sheesh, I have made this podcast so heavy for the first like what 30 minutes or an hour. We've gone from
Probably my fault.
racism to bullying to oh my gosh. Jeez, great job, Buck. Great job.
That's probably my fault. I take responsibility for that. I apologize.
Depressing all of my listeners. But hey, I just wanted to prove that not all white people are the same. Black people, we have a cool one over here. I really like this dude, and I believe you should follow him as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, getting into the superhero thing, since you brought up the Spider-Man line, I wanted to talk about your kind of love for superheroes. If you have a real love for superheroes, was there a particular superhero that you grew up with that you still read to this day? Did you collect comic books? Because you know all about my nerddom. I'd like to find out a bit more about yours.
Probably started with Batman.
Ah,
I had a lot of like action figures. I seem to recall. I never really did get into the comic book side of things, but I always loved like animated series. So I remember watching like the animated Spider-Man series from like I think it was the '60s or something. All of the Batman stuff. I loved all of the movies from like the '80s and the '90s. So it's like the Michael Keaton ones. I really like the dark side of things and the like superheroes that are like really dark and like they've got a bit of a backstory. That's why I was never as much into like people like Superman, because I never liked this idea that like you have a superhero that's all just goody two shoes. I like a flawed person. That's to
I
me
gotta
seems
change
more.
your I gotta change your nickname then.
No, it's like I
Sorry.
like Superman, but like I think for me, the only one that I really like is probably like Man of Steel. Do you know what I mean? Because he's actually like portrayed as like something close to being a human being. So I just don't believe in this idea of like, you know, you're all good or you're all bad. That doesn't work. Like you ever watch superhero movies and you find yourself agreeing with the villain?
Yeah,
That's,
I have watched a few.
that's good storytelling, man. That's
Yeah,
how it should
yeah.
be. You should think that way because, again, they're flawed and like irrational, but at the same time they have like a basis of rationality in why they think that way. And I think for me, I like the superhero stories. I always like. I particularly like when they start out. You know, like origin stories. I'm really into. But I think, yeah, for me, probably my favorite has to probably be Spider-Man. I just love that idea of a geek nerd who just becomes this badass superhero. Like for me, that's just the ultimate dream of any nerdy boy. And I was a total nerd growing up. Uh, a lot of people said that I was cool or like a cool kid, but I felt like the biggest geek nerd, and I still do to this day. I've embraced it, but when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was always an outcast of some description by choice as well, because I just didn't like mainstream stuff. I was always into like anything that
Uh,
normal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
No, but
mean,
that
yeah.
yeah, but that's really cool. I'm also a huge Spider-Man fan. Like I was such a big Spider-Man fan that I used to actually like play with spiders in my garage, and not my mom was not happy with that.
Every boy has had that dream of, come on, Spider, come and bite me. Come on, I want to be Spider-Man. Come on.
And then you find out that radiation doesn't work that way, and you're just like, oh crap.
Yeah, like a house spider is not going to give you any powers.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've been a huge Spider-Man fan. I have all of his books and I've watched all of his. I literally started from the '60s because I
Oh
was
wow.
obsessed with Stan Lee and all of that stuff. Yeah. So, getting into more of that, I'd like to talk about your acting because you
Okay.
do a lot of acting videos and all of that stuff. So, big question. I saw your video on being an extra in Tenet, and I have to know how close did you get to Christopher Nolan on the set?
Oh,
Did you
very
see
close.
him? Oh,
Yeah,
oh, very close, very
yeah.
close. You
No,
mind telling that story?
he often would like walk past me several times a day. Um, he was always constantly within view of where I was. Um, yeah, very close. Um,
That's cool. That's cool. I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan. Even though some of his movies I don't understand, like Inception, I'm still trying to understand to this.
we all are really.
And Tenet apparently is also another one where it's like a mind bending, and it's just like, dude, I came here to watch a movie, not see a physics exam.
I mean,
But
that speaks
I'm
to the replayability of it, though, doesn't it? Because I mean, like,
yeah, no,
if you can go back and watch a movie several times, then it's got some value to it.
yeah, I definitely say that's a win for the director because I mean he purposely did that. He purposely did that. Like one of my favorite movies of all time to this day is The Dark Knight, and I love all of everything about The Dark Knight, even the Batman voice. Because I know people like to talk trash on Christian Bale. He's still my favorite. He's still my favorite. I even do like the voice. I love the voice. You know.
I don't know how he has hate. I mean, I guess yeah, it's down to just differences, isn't it? People like
Yeah, yeah. It's speaking of which, since you are kind of a Batman fan and whatever, and you did mention the Man of Steel and all of that stuff, is like, have you seen the new Christian what I want to say, Battinson, Robert Battenbat,
Robert
Battinson's trailer?
Pattinson.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say that I came up with that first, and somebody stole that from me. I don't know where because I've been hearing it around, and I have proof that I was the first one to say Battinson. But anyway, that's beside the point. Artists are never credited. But anyway, have you seen the trailer? What are your thoughts on that? Are you liking the direction that they're going with and everything?
I think it's brilliant. I knew as soon as they announced Robert Pattinson that he was going to be excellent. I firmly believe this is going to be a really good direction. I think the thing that people, he has a lot of haters, and it's all because of the Twilight fandom. And to be
Of
honest,
course.
at the end of the day, even if you don't like Twilight, you have to realize that he was excellent for that character. Like the way he portrayed that character is exactly how it was in the books. Same with Christian Stewart. Like not Christian Stewart,
Yeah.
sorry. Is it Christian Stewart?
Yeah, it is. It is Christian Stewart. You're
Yeah.
talking about the girl. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, you know, they both played the characters exactly how they were supposed to be played. And he unfortunately kind of got, I think, typecast a little bit because of that. Like he's been in other things since then. He's done like well, but like it kind of has haunted him a little bit. And I think
Yeah.
that this is an amazing opportunity to show like just how versatile he is. And you know, at the end of the day, the Batman is a moody, kind of messed up character. It's a guy who, you know, his parents were killed, and he dresses up in a big bat suit and spends pretty much all of his time in darkness and fighting criminals. Do you know what I mean? It's not. He's not a normal person. He's not. He is a moody, dark person. So Pattinson plays it really well, at least as far as the trailer is concerned. But
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
regards to like the story, because I noticed it's called The Batman, so I'm thinking maybe this is related to because okay, forgive me if I'm wrong. Is it Batman and the Bold or Batman
That's
Beyond?
Brave and the Bold. I think
Is it
that's
Brave
Brave
and
and
the
the
Bold
Bold.
where there's older Batman and younger Batman? Is that the one?
Oh no, that's Batman Beyond. That's Batman
That's
Beyond.
Batman
If you're
Beyond.
talking
Okay,
about if you're talking about the futuristic suit and Terry McGinnis and yeah,
possibly.
that's
Yeah,
Batman. Yeah,
I
that's
just I
Batman
like
Beyond.
that dynamic. I'd like to see that in a live action movie at some point. And I thought, for some reason, when I saw that name, I thought maybe we might see some sort of thing there, possibly in the future. I know that possibly will happen with Michael Keaton in some sort of upcoming thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think Pattinson will do a good job. And, you know, at the end of the day, people will complain about anything. You know, I think the last time we genuinely had like a bad Batman movie was probably the ones with oh
Michael
god,
Michael Schumacher is
Michael
what's
Schumacher, Joel Schumacher. Michael Schumacher is the
Michael
F1
the
driver.
racer. Whoops. Whoops.
Yeah, no,
I just typecasted white people. Whoopsies.
no, I mean those two. Like, I still find them fun. I thought they were fun, but I get why people got
Oh,
annoyed because they were
yeah,
so
yeah,
far
yeah.
removed. But then that's the funny thing about people, because they shit on it and they say, "Oh, it's so terrible. Oh, it's so unrealistic, and you know, it's so jokey and campy." And it's like, dude, that's what made Batman famous in the '60s. That was like the
Yeah,
campest, most
yeah,
ridiculous, over the top thing, and it
yeah.
was rooted in what the comics looked like as far as like aesthetics are concerned and stuff. But it was way over the top, and people love it to this day. So I think you know, I don't take criticisms and people complaining that seriously anymore. Like even the Star Wars movies, for example, like yeah,
Ooh,
I'm
opening
not
a
a big
can of
fan of them.
worms.
I'm not a big fan of them, but at the same time, like I think that they have good things in them, and I think that it is just a matter of taste. You know, I think to say that a movie is genuinely bad, I think you need some like fact for that. Like if we're talking like The Room, for instance, that movie, like you can objectively say that's a bad movie.
That's Tommy Wiseau, right? Tommy Wiseau. Oh yeah, you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
It's amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's meme worthy. It's brilliant. I love it. I love all of them. Right, but and they will agree with this too. In terms of how it is made, it is a bad movie.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's the tagline, isn't it? The greatest worst movie or something. So yeah, I mean,
No,
I
I
think it's
definitely.
people whining for the sake of whining. You know.
No, as a person who does do reviews and does critique movies, because I actually watched this great podcast, I would suggest you check it out as well. They don't know who I am, but anyway, it's called Double Toasted. So it's definitely like a group of people who are very fair about movies, and they try to find the best in everything, even if it's a very terrible movie. Because I do think good movies that don't mean perfect movies, and bad movies don't mean that there's nothing good in them. I definitely believe in that type of thing of finding something somewhere. Because even with those the Batman and Robin movie, like the campiness was, I mean, as ridiculous as it was, like you couldn't help but laugh. Like every time
It was great.
Arnold Schwarzenegger would throw out a one liner. That
This is
was
like, allow me to
fantastic.
break the ice. How can you not love that?
Oh man, my favorite one was everybody chill. Is oh no no
Everybody
actually,
chill.
and cool body. I watched that over and over again. I love Iceman in that
I
movie.
love
It's
me
like
some Arnold Schwarzenegger, man. Get to
it's the
the
most.
chopper! Ah!
No, he's one of my favorite actors. He does like the same thing everywhere, but I love that dude. Dude is great. Yeah, so getting more into acting now that we're talking about the movies and things, did you act before YouTube? Did you start acting on YouTube? Did you take acting classes in university? Where does your love for acting come from in particular?
It's recent, actually. I'll try and tell the story very briefly. So, back in March 2019, I was living in Estonia. I was just doing like marketing work, and a colleague of mine basically said, "Hey, there's some people that I know that are doing a short film, and they're looking for an English guy who's from London." And I was like, "This is jokes. Like, I have to go for this. Like, what? Do you know what I mean?" So I went for it. I got it, and I didn't realize until afterwards, or the day of shooting, that it was actually a lead role. I was like, "Holy fuck!" Because I'd never done acting before, and yeah, I was just really nervous. I just thought it was going to be a bit part. So then it comes to the day of shooting. I'm prepared. I know all my lines, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun experience. It came very naturally. It felt kind of like when I do music or any of the other creative stuff that I do. And for that reason, I kind of felt like, okay, this is something that maybe I should pursue in some capacity. To answer your question, like, no, I haven't had any lessons. That's something that when I get some money and I get a job and stuff, I will definitely look into and start working on. So I've kind of just been looking at like what I can do um, right now, and obviously practicing on YouTube videos, and just trying different things here and there, and experimenting is mostly how I've sort of been operating for the last year. And yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% set on like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life, because I do feel that like in my life specifically, I'm into a lot of different things, and I just like the idea of doing all these things I love for a living. So I don't know where it's all headed and stuff, but I think as a short-term goal, once I get some money in, I would like to take some lessons and do it. But in terms of why I love it, I like the creativity. I like how it feels when you do it. I like the whole process, working with people on set, and then looking at the end product and seeing the director's vision as well, because I can think of times where I've done something and I thought it was going to go a certain way, and then based on the way it was edited, it came out completely differently. So that's another element that's interesting as well. So yeah, I don't know, I find it fun. That's pretty much it.
Definitely, definitely. Because I've seen a lot of your videos. You're actually really, really good. So I'm hoping that you do kind of pursue that type of thing. Because I mean, as a person who also takes a lot of directions in whatever he's doing, I'm hoping that one of them pans out. Because I'm going to be doing all of them. Like,
Cool.
there's not one thing that I'm going to like leave to the side. I don't think, because of the way my brain works. But yeah, one
Right,
of them
yeah, yeah.
pops off. One of them pops off, great. But yeah, and I'm also a person who's pursuing acting as well. So I'm like
Oh,
watching
nice.
some of your stuff, watching other people's stuff, trying to see what people do with their characters and stuff, and then trying to get into, especially for the live action thing that I told you about that I'm trying to
Hmm.
do and pursue. So yeah, and hopefully I can get you for that if it travels really well. Dreams, lofty aspirations. But anyway, um,
Dream, 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 dream.
speaking of your music, though, you do a lot of like covers and stuff. Like you do a lot of German rock music and heavy metal. I don't know what the term is, but a lot of Rammstein and stuff. My sister is a big fan, by the way, and she
Rammstein.
heard I was, yeah, the Rammstein. Apparently, you made her a fan.
She has good taste. Fair play.
Yeah, yeah. because we actually went on what do you call it, an exchange program to
Right.
Germany. So yeah,
Oh,
we
cool.
stayed in we stayed in Germany for like a couple of months due to a school thing, and that was really interesting. The
Mm.
sun never sets in Europe. How do you guys sleep? I've had this in
Sure it does.
at 11 o'clock. Like when I was in Germany, it was like setting at 11. It felt like 4 in the afternoon. I couldn't sleep. I was like this.
What time do you go to bed?
No, I was trying to go to bed. Like I was up for 4 hours with my eyes open. Like, come on, son, down now. Yeah, that
Wow.
was just a very weird experience. I don't know if it was just the side of Germany that I was in, but
Maybe it's
like,
summer. I mean, I know in summer,
yeah, it
like,
was definitely summer. It was definitely summer. So I felt like the sun was just not leaving, and I couldn't sleep. But anyway, speaking of your music, so has that been a long pastime, passion? Have you been doing that for a very long time? Because I've seen a lot of your covers, a lot of your like your guitar strumming. I don't know what the technical term is it for, because I dropped guitar years ago. But like you're very good at that stuff. So has that been a long time project for you?
yeah, I've been doing it all my life. I started getting into music when I was 11 years old. So I'm 27 now. So it's been, yeah, a long time. I've been in many bands, solo projects. I've released music over the years. It's just always something that's been in my life. Again, another thing that I'm working on in terms of, like, I'm actually working on music right now, very slowly, like original music. In terms of covers, it's mainly just something I do for fun, practicing, just trying to put content out there while I work on my own stuff. Um, but yeah, music has always been a massive part of my life. It's part of who I am. I love to perform. I love to write music, to listen to it, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. Is there any links that we can that you can shoot me? Is there any like SoundCloud handles or anything of that nature? Because I'm
Should,
gonna be putting all your links in the description of this video so people can like find and connect with you and stuff. Because I
I
really
think
think
the
your
best
stuff is good.
place right now, the best place is probably my YouTube playlist, or my Facebook, because I've got music in both of those places. Instagram's a good one as well. That usually is the first place that I upload music stuff, because I just sort of do it on a whim at the moment. I'm like, oh, I'll jam this, put it out there. But as far as like original music is concerned, it's either YouTube, SoundCloud, or elsewhere. I know when I get this EP done eventually, I'm gonna probably put it through SoundCloud, Facebook, YouTube. Probably stick to those.
Is there a
Yeah.
working title for the EP? Is there a working title? Is there a name?
I don't know. No, it's still too early to say.
Ah, okay,
I'm
okay.
still I'm playing. There's a lot of ideas there, and I've recorded. It's. I work in a very weird way because I've been very busy with everything just in general, and I like to just bury my head in one thing. So there'll be a day when I just work on a song for ages or start writing a new one, and there's probably about 7 or 8 unfinished song ideas there, and some of them are just riffs. Some of them are like I've recorded a verse and a chorus. It's a bit mad.
Yeah.
I,
Oh no, you're talking to Madness Central as a person who does music as well, and I just do like
oh,
hip hop, and I mess with FL Studio and stuff. I literally have like 60 files
yeah.
sitting in my sitting in my doc in my folder, and they're just unfinished ideas that I'm like, "Ah, I'm not going back to this." Like sometimes I finish an idea right then and there. Other times I like leave it for like weeks and weeks on end, and maybe I come back to it. And if I feel like there's something there, I'll finish it. Other times, like I'll come back to it, it's like, what the hell was I doing?
Yeah, no,
What the hell
I
was?
think that's fair. I mean, that's how I roll. I think that's the best for me. I've learned, as far as creativity is concerned, just go with the ideas. The ideas will guide you, not the other way around. I feel like if
Yeah,
you try to like sit down and make something, rarely will it come out like great straight away. Normally, like things take a lot of time. Even if the ideas come quickly, you still have to spend a lot of time like polishing them or whatever.
yeah, because I think people also have this misconception of what
But
like
everyone's so different.
creative.
I might.
Oh, sorry. I think you
No,
cut
go
out
for
and I cut out. Well, anyway, I was just saying, I think people have like this misconception of what a creative is and being a creative is. They think it's like this. No, I mean, it's not. It's cool, but I mean, there's a lot of work put into it. It's not just like it's easy. It's not like it's a fun time. Like if you look at all those musicians making money and you're just like, oh, they're having such a great time being a rock star. No, it took a lot of work to become whatever that is. So just like how you respect a doctor or how you respect a lawyer or whatever, I respect creatives and artists and all of that in the same capacities. If you can build that network and build that platform and build that skill, it takes a lot of work.
It's kind of always amazed me that people don't respect creatives more because I mean, without art, music, all of these things, you would not have any form of like escapism from day to day life. I mean, it's an incredible like concept because it's literally stuff that comes straight from the mind, or experiences or whatever, you know what I mean, and you can relate to it or find something in it, but ultimately you can find a form of escapism. And yeah, like you said, it's not easy. Often a lot of time and work is put into it, and it just that like when you see people partying as musicians, as rock stars, I mean, you don't see the weeks and weeks and weeks of sitting in a studio and like for 10 hours plus a day. You don't see that. You just see them partying at some place, or playing a gig. The reality of workmanship is quite intense, I think.
No, it is. It is very, very intense. And I'm also like a believer in like my mentality in approach to like social media and stuff is that I don't control my audiences, but my audiences don't control me. Like in the sense that I'm gonna put stuff out that I want to put out. I mean, again, I'm gonna consult with my community because I want to engage with the community. But there is that line where people like want to overstep their bounds and they're just like, you should only be making this or you should only be making that. And I'm like, I'm too much of a creative to stick to that kind of thing. So if you're not liking what I'm putting out, you can easily unfollow me. I never engage with stuff that I dislike.
This is I completely agree with you. I'm exactly the same. And this, once I started doing this myself with YouTube, I then began to understand why musicians put out stuff that's really left field that not everyone likes. Like it kind of gave me a newfound appreciation for that, because often you'll find like when a band releases like a particularly iconic, you know, album, or they change their sound in some way and people get annoyed and they're like, how could you do that, like you're selling out, or you should just stick to doing this. And it's like, first of all, things change with time, and whatever you create in a particular moment is a reflection of that time period, and you're not going to do the same thing that you did, and the ideas grow with you and they change. And I feel like once you've kind of done something, like, you move on. Do you know what I mean? You don't keep doing the same thing. And I think that applies to everything in life. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't just keep doing the same thing. You have to keep.
Yeah, yeah, you have to keep evolving. You have to keep evolving and changing. Oh, sorry. I just had a moment of panic because I was like, "Am I still recording? Please let me know I'm still recording." Yeah. I just wanted to cover, I think, two more topics before we close this out. So you also do a lot of let's plays, and you also are in love with Estonia, as far as I know. So I'd like to cover the Estonian stuff first. Like I
Sure.
saw when you were doing that exploring of the abandoned school and all of that stuff. I felt
Mm.
like I was watching a horror movie. I was like, why is he going in there? Why? It's like there's something that's like Jason or Freddy's like in the corner just waiting for you or all of that stuff. So I wanted to know like your connection with Estonia and you living there and learning to speak Estonian and all of that stuff. Was there experiences there that changed you forever, or like just talk about that if you want to, briefly or whatever.
Yeah. Well, in total, I lived there for 3 years. Lived there and worked there. But I'd been visiting for like on and off for 5 years. So I spent like a summer here, winter there. And I was dating someone who's a good friend of mine now. During some of that time, So she kind of introduced me to all of this, this culture I'd never heard of. I knew very little about Estonia before I went there. Um, and it kind of just opened my eyes up. I'd been traveling before anyway, but living in a country versus just traveling is very different. Um, and there's different ways you can live in a country. You can go there and like cling on to everything that's from your home country and miss out, or you can fully embrace everything that country has to offer. And that's kind of what I did. I embraced the music. I tried learning the language as best I could, which actually wound up being very useful in the end. And I also think, just on a side note, that you understand the culture and the people much better if you learn the language. Like, it teaches you a lot of things. But anyway, I would say that it was life changing. I think that it opened my eyes up about just different types of life in the world, different mindsets. I did fall in love with it. Yeah, you're right. Estonia is like a second home to me. The only reason I don't choose to live there anymore is I can't hack the winter. I'm sorry, guys, but it's like
A Brit can't hack the Estonian winter? What is happening?
if you live there, like, it's dark for like 8 months of the year, and it's fucking
uh,
yeah, it's very tough. And also, I'm not a big fan of like the systems there, the way things are done as far as like government is concerned, and I think like the people have to put up with a lot of bullshit that's unnecessary and not fair. And it relates to everything from like business to the economy to all sorts of stuff. That's not to say that like the UK is any better. We have our problems. It's just different.
yeah, I think that's everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I do think though that like any country you go to, it is a case of like good versus bad. So like, for instance, Estonia is very picturesque and beautiful, and every 5 minutes there's like a forest or something beautiful, something nature worthy that's just really enticing. And I miss it. I do miss it a lot, and I'm always kind of keeping in the loop and stuff. But yeah, I think it kind of just made me realize, on just at like the most simple level, that like, it's good to just have an open mind to everything that's available in life, and just take opportunities when you have them. Just go for them, see what happens, see what you learn. Just go for it. I had an opportunity to go there. I thought, fuck it, I have nothing to lose. I went, and it was life changing, and I learned a lot, and I'll never forget it.
great story, great message. I personally also think that that's the basis of intelligence, is to have an open mind. Because like a lot of people who will go to another country and be like, speak English, and it's like, you're actually dumber than the you're
Oh,
dumber than the locals, because if they can speak English, they're smarter than you, because now they have two languages in their heads instead of only one. So I'm definitely like keen on, if I go to another country, I'm going to try and learn the language and
it's
immerse in the culture as best I can.
it's a respect thing, like that. Like, when because my philosophy in life, as far as like philosophy as far as like traveling to countries, even if you're a tourist, I think you need to learn some basic words, phrases to show respect, because it's not your country. And equally, I think that, you could disagree with the way things are in another country, but it's not your country. You have to adhere to their way of life and what they do. And I think that when you expect them to do everything that you do, or you expect them to speak your language, it's just very rude, and you're probably going to get fucked over as well. That's more of a point. Like, not necessarily, but like it'll probably happen, and you'll deserve it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, no, you're missing out.
Yeah, I just want to say, Christian, you probably make a terrible colonizer, because you're like, no, we should respect their country and their language. They don't have to speak what we say. So I'm guessing like all of those historical people would be like, man, this guy has a problem. How did he get on the boat? I definitely love
I'm
that attitude.
glad I was born now, and not then, 'cause that sounds awful.
Well, I don't know. I think because I don't know. I think like the way you are, because I mean I'm a big history buff, and I don't believe everybody was like that back then. And I've definitely seen cases of the people who tried, and some white people actually got screwed by the very establishment that they were trying to fight badly. Like there's the case of this dude who was, I don't know if you've seen it. It's like that Black Power fist at the Olympics. So basically, it's two black
Yeah.
people, and then there's this one white dude. Apparently, he didn't know they were going to do that, so he would have done it with them. And apparently, his life went horrible after that because he was an activist against racism and all of that stuff. So
That's no, really. He was accused of that just because he didn't put his fist up. Like, I think that's a
no,
bit
no, yeah,
unfair.
he was accused. Yeah, he was accused of that, but I definitely don't think that was fair. But at the same time,
And
when
this
you
is
go
the
into
thing.
his,
There's an argument. It's so many ways. You could argue that if he did put his fist up, that would have been like taking away from the message of the black guys that were trying to make a stand. Do you know? And there's different
yeah,
ways you can
yeah,
interpret.
it was definitely a tricky one. But if you go into his history, he got screwed by the establishment very badly because he was pro black or whatever. And just so we
Oh,
put it out there, yeah, yeah, he was very pro black, and his life got ruined because of that. Not because he was against black people in general. It was because he was for black people that his life got really messed up because like
it's funny.
friends and stuff
It's funny you
and
say
yeah.
that. Actually, well, when I started like coming out and supporting, BLM, for example, when everything was happening, I don't know necessarily. I lost a bunch of followers, but I know people in my community started losing followers because they were supporting this, and I was like, wow, like this is a good way of like rooting out the people you don't want in your life.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Even I've seen people in my own community say things like all lives matter and stuff, and I remember the first time I heard that, I was had very mixed feelings about it, because the bigger part of me was like, nah, this is just a shitty kind of um people being petty is kind of how I saw it. Do you know what I mean? Take away from what BLM really means. But then the other contingent were kind of saying, oh well, uh, all lives should matter, and it should be like this. And I'm like, yeah, in an ideal world it would be like that, but then history, if nothing else, has taught us that, like, things have played out a certain way. Like, as a white man, for example, I've never experienced racism in my entire life. um so it kind of just goes to show that, like, for a movement like BLM, it should exist, and it shouldn't be opposed by people that just want to, I don't know. Um,
No, I definitely get where you're coming from, and I just want to also put this out there. Black people don't want BLM to exist, but they kind of need it to exist. Like it would be cool if it was not a thing that was necessary, but people need it.
what you mean? It's like a history month, isn't it? It's like it should just be part of history. It shouldn't be singled out. But at the same time, you've got the flip reverse thing of like, well, we should talk about slavery and all this horrible things that happened, because you know it's further re-educating and making people understand like why things like this can't happen again, and like why it was so atrocious and stuff like that. It's kind of a weird double-edged sword. It's like we should and we shouldn't. It's like we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't kind of situation.
And like personally, I don't ascribe this to anybody, any black people out there, but I do generally also feel bad for when like white people try to step in and try to tackle these issues and then get attacked from all sides because it's just like I'm just trying to do the right thing here, guys. So
It's
I'm a big guy.
best to not even get involved. I think the best thing is support it, but like I think, like I saw a lot of people say that like with BLM it should just be like a thing that just let black people carry that banner kind of thing, and like go and run with it. And I think that like that kind of works. To me, it's the same as like how odd would it be, for instance, if you have like a male speaker trying to perpetuate the values of like a feminist rally in say like like let's say like back in the day before like voting was allowed, and when they were really trying to campaign for the vote and stuff like that, right?
Oh, like the suffragettes movement and all
Yeah,
of that stuff.
precisely. That's
Yeah.
what I meant, the suffragettes. Yeah, if you had like a man being at the front of that trying to like push it forward, like, yeah, it's great that there's a male supporter, and that's important, but at the same time, like, it's a woman's movement created by women for women kind of thing. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
how I look at BLM as well. It's like it's great to have that support of the white community, That's great. That's positive. That's what you want. But at the same time, like, I don't know necessarily that it's as effective to have white people, in the mix, kind of being like main speakers. I think like just being involved is great, being a supporter is great, but I think it's ineffective or less effective if they're like right at the forefront, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean definitely, but I'm just saying like guys like you who understand that type of thing will still get attacked by like people in my community, and I'll just be like,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
relax, chill, chill, chill. Like he's trying. That's what we
Yeah,
want.
I think at the end of the day, as long as you're not an asshole and as long as you're just like respectful of other people and nice and shit, you generally are okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It's when,
yeah.
it's when you start
It's
kind of
it's
like,
it's a, it's a weird thing, right? Like being nice and being respectful apparently is very very difficult nowadays.
not really. I mean, it's you just have to kind of like just be sensible with things you say and think about what you say before you say it, and just if you're wrong or you say something that offends people, don't panic. Just think about what's being said. Look at like what people are saying to you. Take it in, and if you need to apologize, just apologize. Be like, "Hey, I was wrong. I'm sorry," and
Yeah,
that's
geez,
it. And move
like
on.
you won't, you won't die. Like
Yeah,
admitting you're wrong. Like people think like I'm gonna die. Yeah, so I
I think
definitely,
people are petrified with being wrong. They think, "Oh, that's the end of my life as I know it," and it's really not. Like it's. I mean, for example, PewDiePie has said like Nazi remarks in the past. He apologized. He said it was wrong, and he's still as strong as ever. Do you know what I mean? Shit happens. You say silly things in life. You fuck up. I mean, that's kind of a forgotten thing in life, or something that people are forgetting, is that like part of the human experience is to fuck up and make mistakes and grow from them and learn from them. Like, I almost feel like you shouldn't have to apologize for every single fucking thing you do, because it's like that is just part of being human. I
yeah,
refuse to
no,
believe that the people that say like, "Oh, how dare you do this? How dare you do that?" What, you were telling me you
that,
never
yeah,
make mistakes?
yeah, yeah. Like that's a big reason why I'm not a. I know might get me canceled or whatever, but I'm not a big fan of cancel culture. Like I think definitely I think definitely first of all you can't cancel somebody that you don't follow. That's rule number one. Like for example, when people were canceling PewDiePie, I was never a fan. I was never like a big fan of PewDiePie. So when they were like, "Are you gonna cancel PewDiePie?" I was like, "I don't subscribe to him, so I can't cancel him." Literally, I have no bearing on his success whatsoever. The only people who can cancel him are his followers. And then second of all, if you don't want to hear what he's saying, there's literally a mute button. Like you can mute tweets, you can X button. So like it definitely feels more of a control esque thing, cancel culture. Like you want to control somebody who's more famous than you and feel some sense of power that you really don't have because they're still going to be fine at the end of the day. Like what are you doing with yourself that
I
you need
do
to go
wonder
and
about
control?
this. Yeah, like, because I've had this discussion with many people about, because it comes down to freedom of speech, really, doesn't it? Like, I think ideally, in an ideal world, like, you just would get rid of the cancel culture thing, and you would just have a thing where if someone says shit that people don't like, yeah, you just stop following them, stop giving
That's
them.
how you cancel somebody.
Yeah, it's like imagine if you're in like the playground. Let's say you're a kid, right? And there's a kid who says something really horrible, right? The best way to deal with that situation is everyone just ignore that person. Like, don't be aggressive, don't attack them, just give them nothing, and then that person just loses everything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's I mean that's kind of how I handle all of my situations because I've had like situations online and of that sort of nature. So that's kind of, I mean, personally, this is not ascribing this to anybody else, not saying anybody else has to follow these rules because they're not rules. But yeah, that's personally what I believe. All right, we're going back into a heavy direction again. Whoopsies, my bad. So I just want to talk about your gaming stuff quickly. You do a lot of gaming, and I really wanted to ask, what's the hardest game you've ever played? Like that's I think that would be an interesting question to answer.
the hardest game I've ever played. Wow, that is a good question. Uh, God, I don't know. I can think of levels in games that have been ridiculously difficult. Like, off the top of my head, I can remember, if anyone's ever played Grand Theft Auto Vice City, there's this quite famous mission where you have to control like a small helicopter, like a miniature helicopter,
Oh,
and
I played that.
it's a really straightforward like mission. It's not actually that difficult, but for some reason, if you don't have like the exact pattern right and you're like wrong by a couple of seconds in certain places, it can just take you forever. You just keep fucking. As far as like hard games are concerned, I mean, I think a lot of the time, if a game is too hard, I just won't play it. But
Yeah,
like,
I quit.
I'll usually come back to it. What'll happen is I'll come back to it fresh mind, and then if I come back to it several times and I just can't do it, then I'll stop playing. But if I come back to it and then I'm just like, oh yeah, fresh mind, I was able to do this, do it differently. I think that's kind of how most people play games, really.
Yeah, because I don't like it when games are too hard. Because it's like, what am I playing? I'm just getting angry, just getting frustrated. Like God of War was a big one for me. That almost ruined my controller.
Oh,
So yeah,
I've trapped my
uh,
controller many times.
oh man, like it's ruined it from like stress and frustration, and also all the quick time events where you gotta rotate the thing, and then like yeah, have you seen like some of those pictures where like people show their controllers after playing God of War? It looks like it was in a war itself because that game was so hard. Yeah, and then another question I had is any reason why you stick to retro games? You don't really seem to dabble in the newer games of today. I'm sure you play them like in your off time or whatever, but is there any reason you stick to like retro? Oh, not at all. Okay. Is there any reason like you stick to retro games? Are you a big retro games fan? Do you want to bring like retro games back in a sense? Just talk to me about that.
I just don't have the money.
Ah,
To get like like right now, I would need like a console and like a television monitor. There's a bunch of stuff that I need. I just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
unemployed, don't have the money, all of this stuff. So I just work with what I have. So for that reason, I'm currently doing like retro games.
I mean, it's been great. I've been watching all of your stuff. It's been fantastic. So I definitely want to say that you can keep that up because I'm a big believer in bringing
See,
back
man,
retro games.
I'm not as interested in it anymore. Like since I started doing the podcast and a bunch of other stuff, I'm kind of like I'll still do it, but it takes a lot of effort to do. And for me, if I don't feel like my heart's fully in it, then I won't do it.
Oh
But
no, definitely, definitely.
I think I probably will do. I'll drop one here and there, and certainly if there's more demand for it, I'll do it. I mean, for instance, there's a Let's Play series that's currently unfolding on my channel right now, but there doesn't really seem to be much interest in it. So it's kind of like meh, meh, and that's kind of like how I'm taking it. I'm like, meh, okay, I won't do this anymore, kind of thing. Like,
No, I definitely, and that's a great attitude to have because like lots of YouTubers, when they start a series, they're like, "This is the series." You never know what it's gonna be, so you kind of have to just let it go, and you kind of just have to say, "Okay, look, it's not working. Maybe I cut this,
I
etc., etc."
it's like you said before though, like you do ultimately what you want to do. So it's like I'm not saying I'll never do gaming stuff again. It's just that like I'm less likely to want to do more if they're not performing well and there's not really like an audience for it. So like for instance, I keep doing the podcast because I love it and because I've received like some positive feedback. Like people are like, yeah, this is good. I enjoy it. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep doing this. So I think to some extent, like positive feedback and a bit of some positivity in your community does kind of steer you a little bit as far as like what you'll continue to do in the future. But that doesn't stop me from doing stuff that I love, like even if it doesn't do very well. Like for instance, I have a series called Story Time where I take like crazy stuff that's happened from my life and just tell the story, right? And those videos don't do very well, but I don't really care. I enjoy doing them. It kind of it provides me an opportunity to look back as well. You know,
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. That's a good attitude. I definitely love that story about how you almost cut your finger off in was it Estonia? I was like, for a country that you love so much, it does try to hurt you a lot.
that was just
All
my own
right.
stupidity, man. That was,
Uh, uh, Definitely go check out that video. I might have a link to it in the description down below, so you can just click on that because I definitely think that was a great video, and it's a great way to get your introduction into Chris Reeves. I definitely think personally. Hey, dude,
Yeah, Scott.
if you start off stupid, there's no way but up. You know what I'm saying? If you start off stupid, everything else you do after that will seem very, very intelligent.
That's a
and I
good
def
mentality to have, I think. Fair play.
and I definitely think that when you start off with these embarrassing stories and all of that stuff, people connect to you more because they're just like, oh, okay, he's a regular dude. He puts on
Oh,
one talk at a time. Versus if you're this perfection thing that I don't believe
it
in.
just doesn't exist. No one like that. It really exists in life. Like everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does silly stuff. Like I'm clumsy as they come. So I don't. I've always been kind of like an open book. I have nothing to hide. So I don't really. Yeah, don't really care.
And that's how you not get canceled, ladies and gentlemen. If you're hiding stuff, that's probably how you get canceled.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, anyway, so thanks for being here. This has been a interesting experience. I hope I did this justice. I don't know. I guess we're gonna see how the end product comes out, because this is definitely first time foraying into this, and I can definitely count the number of mistakes I've made in my head during this entire thing. But I guess if this goes well over, and I'll keep doing these. I got a couple of other people that I'd like to do them with, and I definitely suggest you check this man out. He does a lot of great creative stuff, and I know it's not about the subscribers so much, but his sub count, it's criminal. Like, you should be having at least 20,000 subscribers in my personal opinion, because I'm like, you got so much stuff going on there. You got a lot of great stuff that people need to be checking out. Why does he not have? But that's just me being a fan. But I definitely think that you should definitely have more subs, in my opinion. Uh,
So do
you
I.
know, yeah.
No, nah, it doesn't matter. It is what it
No,
is.
I mean, yeah, again, you do what you want, you try and have as much fun as you can, and hopefully it blows up in a way that you need it to. But I just want to say that for anybody who likes my stuff and listens to me, definitely give this dude a couple looks. Give him a couple looks. All right, man. So, is there anything you want to leave Meisterville with before we part?
Uh, just please, if yeah, if you're interested in me, then please check out the Christian Reeve podcast. I'm very proud of it. I've been working very tirelessly to try and turn it into something. You can find it on Facebook now. If you type in Christian Reeve, you'll find me, and you can find it through there. So on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, it's available. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. All right. All right. Okay,
Thanks for
so
having me,
Meisterville.
by the way.
Oh, oh yeah, no, thanks for being here, because I've always wanted to do this myself, but didn't have guests and didn't know how this stuff works. And you definitely gave me some tips in the beginning. But yeah, Meisterville. So again, smash that like, that share, that subscribe if you enjoyed the podcast. Definitely give this dude a couple of looks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to make this a visual thing, because I think the visuals kind of got screwed. So this might just be an audio podcast. I hope you guys still like it anyway. And I will see you in other videos and other podcasts as such, because Meisterman and CPK Reeve have to be out. Peace.
Peace.